All right, so this is kind of flavored for anything and everything. And so we are all filmmakers. All of us have directed, produced multiple movies. And so we don't have all the answers, but if there is a drop in the bucket that we have that we can share with you, then that's great. But we're going to jump on these questions. And let's see. Let me see if I can get this up and running here. I might need help getting this started. Good deal. Well, let's introduce ourselves real quick so everybody can. I'm Stephen Kendrick, and was on this staff at this church for 13 years, and I continue to attend here. Hasn't Sherwood been great? It's just been an amazing church. When the Lord called me and Alex to come down here, we had no idea what we were getting into. But we found out it was the most unifying church we would ever and have ever been a part of. It's the most racially integrated church. It is. Churches need to look like heaven, not like themselves, or not just like the pastor. And this is the most praying church I've ever been a part of. And this was fertile soil and continues to be fertile soil for God to do great things. But just grateful. We met Lisa here. And Lisa actually was one of the only persons with experience that helped carry us through Flywheel. She was behind the scenes doing so much. And Lisa, you were acting and makeup and counseling.
Boom op and
anything.
Yeah. That Home Depot lighting, we made it work.
Yeah.
We made it work.
So, and Lisa's gone on. She helped she's directed multiple features, just got off the set this past week and drove down here. Thank you for being here. And she helped produce behind the scenes God's Not Dead. There's been multiple movies that she's been a part of, and you've worn a lot of different hats over the years. So,
yeah.
So let me let you guys introduce yourself, John, for this audience. Just pretend like they don't know anything about you. Go ahead.
Well, what they need to know is that when we look at the light coming through the stained glass window, hitting those few tables over there, that's the heavenly tables, I think. So direct your questions to them because you guys are well lit from our perspective. Yeah, I'm John Grooters here with my wife, Judy, Madeline, and Austin. We're from Michigan. We've run a production company, yes, Michigan, the Mitten, go, for 20 years. 20 years of all kinds of projects, and I have written and directed and edited is primarily the three hats. You were talking about the hats, so I like those three hats. I like to write, I love to direct, and I'm sort of committed to editing, so that's what I do.
The storytelling.
Yeah.
3 levels of storytelling.
Right.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Lisa Arnold. I'm here with my husband, Kelly. There he is. Yay! Sherwood was our home for many, many years, and then we moved to Louisiana, and the film industry kind of just took off there, and we were grateful that we were a part of it. And there wasn't a lot of faith and family happening in Louisiana, so that just kind of became my lane to focus on, and I was so grateful that the Lord opened so many doors for me to make a difference there, and now I'm just, bouncing everywhere, wherever the Lord takes us, we go, and love filmmaking. Like, it's just my happy place.
My name is Donald. My wife is sitting there filming me. I'm making sure she cannot use this footage just so that... anyway.
Is she getting your good side? That's the question.
Actually, this is my good side. All right. So I'm really nervous when I have to speak in front of people, so forgive me if I babble, and English is not my first language in the first place. So we're from Singapore. Anybody else from Singapore? No? Okay. No way you're from Singapore? Hong Kong is not Singapore. Oh, you're from Serangoon Road. My office was right at Serangoon Road. We need to connect. Okay. Okay. This is a Christian conference. I don't lie. Okay, so don't worry about that. Anyway, where was I? Okay, so we actually came back from Singapore last week. We were releasing our movie there, and so it's all fun. Thank you.
Donald is very passionate about the gospel. He is hilarious. And he not only works on film, but he's involved with all kinds of ministry stuff behind the scenes, and he loves new technologies, and he is fun to hang out with. So thank you, brother, for being here. Okay, here's the first question. What kinds of work-life balance practices have you found helpful? What kinds of work-life balance practices have you found helpful? We know that filmmaking is a big black hole that will suck up all your time and energy if you let it. So with that in mind, what are things that have helped you over the years to try to bring balance? Because it's not something you just find and keep, you're chasing it all the time, I'm sure.
Well, you just mentioned it a moment before we came on set. Like, after you leave set, you can be very depleted, and your world just becomes a complete stop all of a sudden, and then it's like my energy is completely gone because you've been going. I think it's very important to figure out for you particularly what helps you to refill your cup. So for me, I come home and I immerse myself with my family and get loved on, and then sometimes I take a trip because something about travel just opens my mind up again and allows me to just be refueled and start dreaming again and start envisioning what's next. But you do have to find what's right for you. The great thing about this business is it is an ebb and flow, and you can say no. So don't feel like you always have to say yes. You can say no and just enjoy having months of downtime, right? And just letting the Lord just pour new ideas into you. So that part's wonderful.
Actually, I felt I missed out something. I said I was from Singapore, and all of you are thinking that I live in Singapore. I don't live in Singapore. I live in Fairfax, Virginia. Right? So, okay. Completely missed it out. So, friend, you're still my friend, okay? So, yeah, I think for me, having my wife around really helps, spouse, because they can reposition you. Sometimes when you are on a set and, as a filmmaker, as a producer and a director, you get too much accolade. And a lot of time I want to say, so much accolade that your head start growing bigger than it should. And then you go back home and your wife says, no, you're still that guy, that goofy guy, It brings you back down and humble you. And having her with me always helped balance things out for me. Whether it is in making a movie or in a lot of the ministry work we do. And we love the ministry work we do. I've told people in one of our film set that if God calls me to be the craft service person, I will be the happiest craft service person on the set. I don't have to be directing a movie.
Work-life balance, I've seen how hard this guy's been working this week. If this was work, then your work-life balance is whacked out. But if this is your life, and you've integrated your work in your life, then you're modeling how you can work hard, because it takes a lot of work. But I don't want to speak for you, but our work has to be our life to a degree. You have to be living your life in the context of who you're working with and what you're doing. But there are seasons, at least for us, there are seasons. And as all of the people in this room are in different seasons. The season of life when you can do features in my world was before I was married and had kids and after the kids moved out. In between, we honed our craft on other projects that didn't mean me away from home for 3 months. It just wouldn't have worked. Our kids are healthy and serving the Lord and moved out. And now, like Donald said, Judy and I can go anywhere in the world for any amount of time, and we're home because we're together. But it wouldn't have been appropriate. I still had to travel some, but it wasn't movie travel when the kids were home. I don't know that that was my grand strategy, but God certainly blessed us with those seasons. So even if you're, in a season where traveling a lot, and for me, movies have usually been going far away. You guys have figured out how to do in the same area code in a way that I've never figured that out. Not a lot of movies come from Holland, Michigan. But travel has been a part of our world. But even when we're working from home, we are taking projects and we're honing our craft. So you're always working, but maybe it is now your season or maybe it's coming. But just, at least for us, being patient has been fun. And now, have passport, we'll travel.
Can I say one quick thing? If you can say this while you are working, that you have never worked a day in your life, you have got your work-life balance right.
I would just add to that, early on when you're insecure and you're wanting to prove yourself, you're wanting to say yes to everything. And as you begin to grow in the Lord and you find your identity in Christ, you don't have to, find your value and hope in pleasing other people, because people pleasing is exhausting. And so if you come back to what Jesus did and being right with the Father and walking with him, my insecurities settle down when I've been spending time with the Lord, and it helps me to say no to things that I don't need to be saying yes to. I would say take a Sabbath rest. I mean, God put it in the Ten Commandments that take a day off every week and worship and rest and pause your busyness. And it clears your head, enables you to spend time on the Word, look at your spouse, look at your kids, evaluate your life, take naps in the afternoon. God has set up in the rhythm of a week a way for us to pace ourselves so that life is not a sprint, it's more of a marathon, that we're being wise with that. If we'll honor those simple things that he's given us in his Word, he'll bless that. So, good. All right, next question. What is one action step you would recommend that we take after this festival, both from a personal and also a professional standpoint? What is one action step you would recommend that we take after this festival, both from a personal and professional standpoint?
I would say be still and listen to the Lord. What was he continually speaking to you about while you've been here? What was the message that the purpose of why you were here? Because you're all here for a purpose. You're all here to one specific word. So what was that? You're going to think it's about the connections and it's about the relationships, and all of that is, the Lord can use all of that. But it's about the message that he was trying to put into you. So be still, listen, and understand where he wants to take you.
So I'll say, from a personal, I agree with that, by the way. And from a personal standpoint, I was saying to Steve, this feels like church camp, and I'm in 8th grade again. And I love it. Like, I still get to go to camp, and this is camp, We're in the Word every day. We're fellowshipping and meeting new people, exciting people. Camp was big for me, man. It was a big part of my growth. So you can be encouraged, because we're in this battle. Like, we are the minority of minorities in this field, and we are seriously opposed out there. A lot of you have stories, bloody stories to tell, because our entire production life doesn't take place in this fellowship. So, man, but know that we are here for one another. And if you get out there in the battle and you're getting beat up in whatever reason, man, just remember we have a community. I said to Stephen, this kind of is our church. We all go to different churches, but when I'm in this worship here, and we feel like we're at home. This is our church body. We come from all over the place. So that's the personal. Professionally, we have to make a decision to get better at something. It doesn't just happen by accident. So what is it that if you got up earlier in the morning that you could learn about? Maybe it's a technology, maybe it's a software, maybe it's studying script writing, maybe it's reading. But we are here at a professional conference, and nobody can practice for you. It's your own decision, it's my own decision if I'm going to practice. And whatever your field is, you have an opportunity to come away from this festival and say, I really haven't learned how to do color. We had seminars on color. I'm going to take up Da Vinci. I'm going to take up Baselight. I didn't really study script writing. I'm going to start reading screenwriting books. I mean, whatever it is for you, it is a fellowship. It is a church camp, but it's up to you to practice and to me. So maybe find that one area and say to yourself, all right, I'm going to learn this on my own initiative.
So after you're still and you've practiced, then go. Right? Go do it. Don't just keep waiting. Because God will give you an idea. God will give you a vision. He'll give you a dream. And then pursue that dream. All right? But make sure it's God's dream, not your dream. That's a big difference. All right? I've heard from many young people, they want to make the best Christian movie ever. Christian movies are not that well done. Well, if you say that about other movies, that's not a nice thing to say, right? So we always respect each other's work. But anyway, dream and go. Like one of the examples, next week, my wife and I, we are heading to the Middle East. I have this dream to make a series about persecuted Christians today, not the past, today. Christians that are persecuted today. There's so many stories. And then I just proposed the idea to some of the people I work with, and they love it. And then we just said, okay, we'll volunteer our time. We're going to do it with you, It's going to be a series, a 5-year project. It's fun, and it just started as a dream. That's all it was.
I would say eliminate a time waster in your habits when you get home. My wife and I unhooked cable. We don't have cable at our house. I don't come home and watch football games anymore, that's just not my habit to do that. And just eliminating some things, deleting. I remember when the Lord convicted me about a subscription service that I was a part of that was consuming a lot of my time and energy. And because I'm a filmmaker, I was justifying what I need to learn, about all the things the world was doing. And I realized the Lord was like, you don't need that. I can train your hands for battle. Amen. And I'm just like, but I get my dopamine hit from this habit that I kind of default to when I'm bored. And the Lord's like, you don't need that. And man, it has been like it's like, again, taking off the parking brake or unhooking the U-Haul when you eliminate a time waster from your life. And then you add to it. Jesus said in John 15, the Father, he said, I'm the vine, you are the branches. He said, the Father looks at the branches that are in me that are not producing any fruit, and he cuts them off. And those that are producing fruit, he streamlines them, and he focuses them, and he trims them so that they can produce more fruit. And so that whole concept. And I would say if you don't have a passage of Scripture to study on a regular basis, study John 14, 15, 16, and 17. Those 4 chapters are written by the man who was the closest to Jesus of all his disciples. That was John. And it was written right before Jesus went to the cross. And it was his most intimate teaching to his most beloved disciples right after Judas left the room. When Judas left the room to go betray Jesus, Jesus went to a whole nother level of secrecy and intimacy, and he gave us John 14, 15, 16, and 17. If you don't know where to go every year to study, and you're trying to figure out where to go in your scriptures, go to those 4 chapters and say, God, teach me how to walk intimately with you. And you can just read those chapters again and again and again. And my message last night flowed out of me reading those 4 chapters together. Okay. What film inspired you to start in this career?
Well, yeah, I'm going to say it's a Steven Spielberg film, and it's called Schindler's List. And I saw that at a kind of a conference, and then we spent the next morning in discussion for about an hour and a half, guided discussion, and it just brought to light. And what's really funny, I saw that question coming, and I'm like, I didn't think of this before, but the last 2 films we've done have been World War II era films, Tortured for Christ and then Sabina, Tortured for Christ, the Nazi years, and they're very Schindler's List-esque. And I really didn't plan that, but the power of that film, I think, said to me, how would you tell a story if you had a chance to do it?
So way back in the 70s, the Baptist Mission had a media center in Singapore, and I was a 14-year-old boy. And in the media center, we actually have projectors with 16mm films. If you know what those are, you're revealing your age, so don't raise your hands, okay? So I volunteered to help. My mom thought it was a great idea because that kept me out of trouble. So every weekend, my time was spent going to churches all over Singapore, Saturdays and Sundays, taking a cab, bringing a projector, film, a screen. It's huge. And I saw the impact of movies while I'm running the projector. I've shown some of the movies so much that if the audio bulb blows, I can lip sync. That's why I did the lip sync session. Those of that were in my lip sync session. So I saw the impact of movies in the lives of people, how movies motivate and help. It's a bridge to the gospel, and that kind of told me I want to be doing that.
Beautiful. I don't know that I have one movie. I do. I've thought about this a lot. I've thought about how did I end up here, because I've had so many different twists and turns through the years. And it's like, what made this the perfect fit? And then I went and talked to a friend from home, and they were like, well, you've been doing this since you were 6 years old. Don't you remember that you used to write a show and then you were the only talent, you put it on in your garage and you charged us 25 cents to come and see it. And I was like, that is so true. So I think it's always been inherent that this is something that I wanted to do in some way. I always, with the goal of entertain, inspire, encourage, and show the love of Christ. So that's kind of my mandate. I don't know. If I was going to pick a movie, it would not be anything that would be like life-changing like this. It'd be like White Christmas, because those movies made me smile and brought so much joy to me, and I love a good musical. So, yeah, I'm not going to be the typical person. Sorry.
I'm with you. There's like 10 movies that are coming to my mind. I remember Crossing the Switchblade, which was a Billy Graham movie. I watched that as a child, and I remember watching the gospel transform the gangs in New York. Lived out. Pat Boone was playing, I think, David Wilkerson, I think, at the time. But I remember watching this girl on the screen taking heroin and freaking out, going, Johnny, I need a fix. Johnny, I need a fix, like that. And I remember thinking as a kid, I'm never going to do drugs, ever. Ever, you know. I remember in second grade with my aunt who died of cancer that year, we watched Chariots of Fire in the theater. And it wasn't stadium seating, and I was in the back having to look over the heads of these people that were right in front of me to watch that movie. But I remember thinking, I am going to be a runner in the rest of my life. You know, I was so moved by that movie. It was just a beautiful, that is a great film if you've never seen Chariots of Fire. A true story about Eric Liddell. Sergeant York, a great movie. And it's got everything based on a true story, and Hollywood put it out. You know, those movies, It's a Wonderful Life. I still watch it every year. It's one of the best movies ever made. So those are some of the ones I've got. Okay, how do you keep your story from being developed in an echo chamber? How do you keep perspective on making sure your script or story is good? How do you keep your story from being developed in an echo chamber? How do you keep perspective on making sure your script and story is good?
Well, I hate to necessarily quote Stephen King, but I will, because his book on writing is really very helpful to me, Steve. I'm not a big super fan, but Stephen King says you write with the door closed, and then you edit and you review with the door open. It makes a lot of sense to me. I think there is a time, if you're a writer, you are on your own, you're writing by yourself. And I think that's totally appropriate, you know, you are the writer. So I don't want 1,000 opinions in that moment, but then once that moment is over, then there's some trusted people that you are. I mean, I have a friend in Iowa, we were talking about him last night, Jeff Barker, professor of theater at Northwestern College. He has the right to tear me to shreds. And until he has torn me to shreds, I'm not all that confident. Right. But I don't give that right to just anybody because they haven't earned it. But there are a few people who are experienced. So I like to, trust the process. But then you do open it up to your trusted people, and they will take every opportunity to challenge your structure, to challenge why you've done things, to ask you if this character moves, and all those questions. The good part about that, it's a little bit painful, I'll be honest, but when you survive it, then you have a confidence that says other people may, like you talked about, some people or Alex talked about, you get the opposite reviews. Well, I respect Jeff's opinion more than yours anyway, so I'm okay with it. So that's for me. I don't know for you.
Wow. Well, writers, we're all writers. We may not realize it, but we're all writers. And when you start with that process, if you've ever made a movie that you've written and you made it saying, I will not change this, every page is important to me, and then you get in the cutting room and you realize 20 minutes is gone. Yes. It's just gone. Yes. I should have edited before. So the biggest thing you need to do is find those that you can collaborate with, because remember, God always brings us together as a collaboration, and it's always better, and we see things in layers. So a story that you've been living with, you're not going to see. You're going to have blinders. You're not going to see some things, but a fresh perspective can help you, like add in just a little more layer and a little more layer. That just can make a huge difference in a scene. But they'll also tell you, this has nothing to do with the story. It needs to go away. And it's not only the writer and the director that would have issues with that. Actors have issues with that. When it's a scene that doesn't make much sense, you threw it in to be funny, or you threw it in for this reason, but it's not attached to the story, they're going to have so much trouble with it. They're going to struggle. So it's important to get that feedback on the front end.
So I am not a writer.
You are.
I can write.
I believe it.
1, 2. That's how I write. Okay. My wife is the ghostwriter. She writes really well, but I'm a storyteller, All right, so you can put me up and I can tell stories. So I'm in pre-production of my next movie, which will be shot overseas again. And but what is lovely is that while I was in Singapore talking to my friends, I keep telling them the story. I keep telling them the story. And as I tell the story keep evolving. It's pretty interesting because you look at their reaction and you go like, that's not working. And then you go like, okay, so you kind of create something else. And then you see the face light up, and then go like, okay, that's going to work. And then you move on. And then, so the story that I started with has kind of evolved about 10 times since I was in Singapore for 4.5 weeks, and it's still evolving. So for me, looking at the reaction of people as I tell the story helps a lot. Now, it helps, the question was about echoing, other movies. It helps that I have a very bad memory, so I don't remember stuff that I've seen before. Yeah.
There's a verse that says, as silver purified in the fire 7 times, so are the Lord's words pure. So God gets it pure the first time it comes out of his mouth. It's perfect. You and I have to purify it in the fire 7 times. So with our scripts, we feed it to the sharks like you do, people that love us but will tell us this is stupid, or this stinks, or it's boring. We want those people in our lives. We welcome that. And then the first version to the second version is always a little bit better. And sometimes it's the 7th version of a script or an edit, or with this movie that we just did, it's like the 27th version of the edit that finally we're able to show with other people. But every time it gets better, but you can't take personally when people criticize your art. Artists want to hold their arts right over their heart and say, what do you think about this? Like that. And then they take it personally when people criticize it. You can't do that. Your identity's not wrapped up in that. You have to hold it out and say, blow holes in this. Because the good ideas can withstand the heat.
I should be taking notes, but I don't have anything to write on, but that's helpful.
What are the best ways to go about finding a mentor? What are the best ways to go about finding a mentor?
There, right here, these two.
I would say pray for one and take initiative to find people that are doing what you want to be doing. But I would start with a personal spiritual mentor before, other things. Get your heart, your life in a good place. Our lives ripple out in priority, like dropping a rock in a pond. We get ourselves right with the Lord first, then we can work on our marriages, then we can help our kids and our families, then we can expand, beyond that. That's why the Bible says if a man can't take care of his own house, he doesn't need to be taking care of the church. There's this sense of priority in your life. So I would start first with your own heart and life.
I'm actually mentoring somebody right now in Mongolia. I'm so proud of him because he has come a long way in the last 5 years that I have known him, starting from not knowing anything. Today we have a studio there, and he's producing, and actually he's releasing our movie in Mongolia. I was talking to him this morning, theatrical release in Mongolia on August the 20th, so that was great. So what I want to say is that if you want to look for a mentor, you got to do your job also, right? Don't ask us to mentor you and keep asking us questions, because mentoring is also very tiring. I got to be honest with you, it is very tiring. So we want to have somebody who is really serious and who would take heart as to what we are giving them advice about. Now, you may not agree with us, which is fine. You're wrong, but it's fine, But okay, some got it, some didn't. But anyway, so I want to say that if you're looking for a mentor, I was mentored by 3 persons, and they believed in me. So I was always grateful to these 3 missionaries.
I think this is more your domain, but the Apostle Paul starts out planting churches, kind of like doing movies for millions of people. Planting churches has a long outreach, and as his ministry progresses, it sort of focuses down and down and down, and by the end he's mentoring Timothy and finds more value in God in mentoring one person. And I am by nature wired to want to do this mass, the big wide thing. So the call on all of us, especially if you sort of are on the older side of life maybe, is are you really open to switching that focus from this exciting broad-based thing? And who is that person? That's awesome, Donald, that you're mentoring somebody. And we had a young man from Korea that was living with us for 3 years, and I sort of saw myself in some ways as trying to mentor him. But it is a call on our ministry, and it's very important. So maybe that's the angle for you.
Who was your scripting on the movie you just shot?
Tori Hunter.
So Tori, here's something to think about. Tori Hunter, we went to do auditions for Overcomer at Beth Becca's studio in Atlanta. She was letting us use her facility. And Tori was just a girl that was like a little assistant for Beth at the time. And here's what she did. She had this incredible servant's heart. While we're auditioning, we're not there looking for any kind of person for our crew. We're trying to audition actors. But this girl, Tori, showed up early, smiled all the time, was such a joy to be around. And she was ready to serve very quickly. And just in a few minutes, we're like, she's amazing. Who is this girl? And because of that humble servant's heart, we're talking to Beth, and Beth says, Tori wants to be a director. Well, we don't need a director. Alex is the director on our films. And Tori says, what can I do to learn and prepare to be a director? And I said, Tori, be a script supervisor. A script supervisor is sitting on a set and is wearing the earphones and is listening to the director and the actors on set and watching the script too, and they get to see what the cinematographer's filming. They have this amazing seat on a production set where I said, Tori, if you'll do that, a lot of people don't want to be scripties, but that's like this incredible position. You will become a great director if you can watch other directors and actors and the cinematographer, because you're going to be in a spot where the director's going to be. So I said, come on our set because we love you. We'll train you to be a scriptie, and you be our scriptie for Overcomer, and it'll help prepare you to be a director. She was your scriptie.
She was.
She's amazing.
I've worked with her twice. I love her.
But just you need to be the kind of person where like you're praying for favor, but show up with a servant's heart, willing to get coffee and do whatever it takes, and be a joy to be around. And then people will say, I want you to be on my team. And that's exactly what happened to her.
She's amazing. You're so true. You know, mentoring is such a joy because, right, when you pour out to others, it's just a full circle thing. You yourself get completely filled. And most of what we do, we need other people's help. We need a whole village around us at all times. We need volunteers continually to pull off what we do because there's never enough money to go around for these big productions. But if you just show up on the day, if you just show up and serve, it will come full circle for you. Those that you poured into will turn around and pour into you. I'm always open to mentoring and to talking to people. Kate Larson, stand up. Kate Larson, Into the Spotlight. Okay, so I directed this film for her last year. She was 15 when she wrote it. And because her family is the most adoring, loving, beautiful, faith-filled, empowering family on the planet, you know, they have poured into Kate and they've made her vision and her dream come to fruition. So who would not want to be a part of that journey, you know? They set the table and then just allowed me to come in and be a part of Kate and work with her. And I don't know if I've mentored her or she's mentored me, but we're attached for life now because, you know, this is what you will get out of mentoring. Okay, you can sit down now. She's so precious. I love her so much. But she's a 15-year-old. But I want to remind you that there's probably 60-year-olds in this room that would love to have a mentor too, that would love to be able to take the next step, that are in a new season of their life and would really like to walk through these doors and do more. So we love you young people. We want to embrace you. We want to be there for you. But don't ignore the other people that are around you that would really like to step into this journey too.
Let me just add, let me flip that around. There's a whole lot of mentees wanting mentors. The command in Scripture of go make disciples is Jesus reached out to his disciples and as the mentor, and he took initiative in them. And he walked up to them and said, come follow me. If you have learned anything over the years and God has taught you something, there's people that are younger than you and around you who don't know that thing. And we have to take the initiative to become a mentor and walk into people's lives and say, hey, can I take you to lunch, or can I hang out with you, or would you be interested in meeting together and for me to pour into you? The church needs to get engaged. We have the truths of the gospel. We have the truths of trades. The older need to be taking initiative and reaching out to the young people that are mentors around them. So I just want to encourage you, have a mentality of I'm going to start mentoring people, even if it's middle schoolers mentoring elementary school kids. You know, I just keep seeing young people, they're all sitting around longing for mentors, and mentors are willing to do it. But a lot of times the younger people are waiting to be asked, and the mentors really need to engage like Jesus did. So is it possible to make a good film with one camera? If so, which camera would you recommend?
It is possible, but you know, you better have, like I shot one not too long ago on Steadicam, and so 90% of the movie is Steadicam. You just got to keep your day moving, you know, so your shot list changes, everything changes, right, when it's just one camera, but because two, you can move so much faster. You just have to have a game plan for it, get it done. I'm an Alexa fan. I love all Alexas. That's my favorite camera.
We
want the new one.
We shot
right?
Flywheel and Facing the Giants on one camera, and I don't recommend shooting football with one camera.
Yeah, it's challenging. Yeah.
But I would say the one that you can rent, because we rent all our cameras just temporarily, the one that you can afford to rent, if you can't afford to buy one, the nicest one that you can get, and they're constantly changing. But we shot on Panasonic Vericam for Facing the Giants and Fireproof. We shot on the Red for War Room and Overcomer. But then we shot with the Alexa, and we don't want to go back now. The Alexa has that beautiful, romantic,
it's so beautiful.
cinematic
And the RAW
feel.
is so beautiful, right?
It is a beautiful camera.
Yeah.
It's the one to beat right now. So I would say,
Yeah.
if you can, shoot with that. What would you say?
Obviously, there's been great movies shot single camera. DPs love single camera but for me, no. The answer is no. You can't. I mean, for me, I need multiple cameras. I'm committed to multiple cameras. I think it's because I'm an editor, and but continuity is so much better, and everything is. So I run 2 all the time, 3 often. So obviously, the answer to that, of course, there's been great movies. But if you were to come to me and we were to really sit down and start plotting out how you want it, and I plan everything, so. But I'm saying, man, multiple cameras. So if you can't afford, if you ask me, if I had to choose between an Alexa and a prime lens that was top of the line, Cook primes, or I could have 3 Canon C300s with prime lenses made by Canon, I'll take 3 every time, because in color I can do so much. And so we shot our movies on Canon C300 Mark IIs and Mark IIIs. They're 1/3 or less the price of the Alexa. I've also shot on the Alexas, and I agree with you. That's my #1 favorite. But given the realities of the budgets, that we have to make these choices, and we have had some great input here on the arm wrestling between the producer and the director. It's a natural arm wrestling. And in the compromising, you know, there are different things that different directors will compromise. Lenses and cameras are the thing I go to bat for, but I want multiples, so that's just me.
You just move so much faster with 2 or 3. Yes, yes.
Well, and if it's a money issue, because you're saying I can only afford one, you might be able to afford 2 because you're going to be able to shoot so much faster.
You are, absolutely. Your days will wrap earlier. And then some days you can just, if you can't afford it all the time, then maybe there are days that you say, okay, on these 5 days, we're going to have 2 cameras because we've got a lot of casts, we got a lot of coverage to do. You know, I had a shot list of 40-something. Tori was like, I was like, Tori, I'm scared to send you the shot list because it's going to be like 40-something. And she's like, okay. And but we did our big scenes with the dolly and our beautiful masters and had the drone and all that. But in the afternoon, when we had to just pick up a lot of the coverage of the scene, I actually had 2 Steadicams running at the same time. So it was a little crazy at monitor, but we got it done and we wrapped early. So 40-something shots, so it can be done.
You get out a calculator and do the math. And that's ultimately what we're going to be doing behind the scenes. We're going to be sitting down and we're going to be like, okay, if I'm spending $5,000 an hour and I go in overtime because I'm shooting with one camera, and now I'm paying 1.5 rate for everybody, and I'm burning through money super fast, or if I had 2 cameras I can wrap early, and I can save that money. So just sit down and do the math. Sometimes it's going to be better to do it with one, sometimes better with two. So.
And to that point, that goes for crew as well. We found that it's cheaper to hire more crew. Because time is the most expensive thing in our world. So if I can be leapfrogging while they're setting up the next lighting scene while we're shooting the present one, we can jump right to it and they can tear it down. Versus I got to work with the same grips and gaffers. The cheapest thing we can do is have enough crew. So it is a calculator issue and it's important.
So for me, it's kind of a little different. I'm moving this side now. For camera, I go with whatever the DP wants. Yeah, but lenses are the most important thing. All right. So if you want to invest in anything, invest in lenses. Don't invest in camera bodies because they change all the time. But lenses stay. You know, you have lenses in the 60s and 70s, and they still works really well. I usually shoot with one camera, and the only time I actually shot with 5 cameras was because the city police closed the freeway for me. They don't have the permission to do that, so they said, "Can you shoot it one time, one shot, and you're done with?" So I practiced with 5 cameras, and then we did it one time. They shut the freeway, the interstate freeway. They don't have the rights to do that. They gave me a 15-minute window. It was all God. I mean, which police will shut an interstate for you, you know? But and we didn't have to pay for it on top of that. But normally I do shoot with one camera, but it requires a lot of planning. Right? It's not like, okay, one camera works, but it requires a lot of planning. You know exactly what you want, you do it.
Can you tell a story of a time you failed to be honoring to Christ on set and how you honored the Lord following that failure?
Yeah, how much time do we have? I can think of one. We were working on a film for the Creation Museum, and it was a film called Men in White, and it involved 2 comedic actors who were really fun, but they had to be flying all day. So we were working in Van Nuys, kind of the Hollywood area, in a big green screen studio. So these were expensive days because there's all the rigging, and they had to be, and flying all day is tiring on the body too. So you're just, it's a ton of effort, and it was a lot of coverage and everything, and 100-foot green screen wall. This was early in the days of digital, so we were working on a Vericam, and then we were outputting, because the Vericam would record 8-bit to its innate tape, but it would record 10-bit if you went out the SDI spigot on the back. So 10-bit, because all this was going to be, chroma key graphic work, was really important. And it was early in these days, and so we hired the best company, supposedly in LA, to come and handle all the data management and data backup and the DIT work. So we worked this whole day. It was a great day. They were funny. They were fresh. It was the first day. We had all the green painted. And at the end of the day, the guy's banging on the computer, and he says, "Uh-oh." And I'm like, "Oh, what?" He lost all the data of the whole day. My attitude at that point, what's the question? Honoring Christ? It wasn't so Christ honoring. I mean, that's the only job they had, and the entire day, probably $35,000, $40,000 of our expense was apparently gone. My wife was in Michigan, and I got home. We called about it, and she was the holy one, not me. But she says, "How do we honor Christ?" And the next day, before the whole group, and in the morning, I said, "Hey, here's what happened yesterday." And I saw Joe. He didn't do anything wrong. This is computers. It happened. And so we're going to just split the cost on this, 50-50, us and them, and move on as if we were ready to go. And these union dudes said to me later, "We've never seen anybody do that. You should have chewed him out. You should have fired them on the spot, blah, 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 blah," which I was considering. But the next day, under some wise counsel, and then on top of that, she ended up scanning the world to find the best data recovery military group in the world, and for a fee of about $10,000, she recovered the data. But the witness lasted. I went back to that place 20 years later, and they remembered me. Wow. "Oh, we know who you are." So that lasted a long time. So thank you, Judy.
I mean, there's so many times we fall short, right? And all we can do is just try and do better the next time. I try so hard to love on my set, to love everybody, on my crew, on my cast, on every person that's on that set. I just want to make a difference in their world. It is such a hardship for us to leave our families and be away from them for so long and do this. So we become that family. So I really want to love on these people and make them feel like they have a great support team. But this would go back to our start. So I was a part of Flywheel and was asked to be a part of Facing the Giants, But I wanted to be an actress. I didn't want to be a producer. I wanted to be an actress. And Stephen said, you be a producer on this. And I said no, because my heart was broken because I wasn't in the film. So you've got to die to yourself all the time. You have to die to yourself. You have to die to your dreams. You have to trust the Lord with it. You have to let ego go and let him use you where and how he wants to use you, right? You know, eventually he's going to put you in the place, which is what I call my happy spot, you know, my happy place. But there's a lot of shoes you need to walk in first to find that. And there's a lot of things that the Lord has to teach you along the way before you get there.
It helps that I have a bad memory, so I cannot remember any of those bad stuff that I've done. My wife would remember them, but but I do remember 3 films ago, there was an actor that I just could not stand. But he was established. I almost wanted to, I spoke to the line producer, I said, I need to fire this guy. I need to fire him. He says, but he's established. I said, I don't care, I need to fire him. No, he's established. I said, okay, I'll live with him, but I made his life miserable. Because he has such a bad attitude. He was such a bad apple. I mean, I didn't really make his life miserable, but I made sure he understood that he was not that great a person, you know, right? I put him in his place. So it was mean, but I think he deserved it. So but everybody in the crew thinks so. But another 2 films that I did, the last 2 films, I actually had to fire somebody in those 2. But we have to honor, even though we had to let them go because they are, you know, they're bad apples, they will affect the set, but I still have to honor their contract. So I paid them and then I let them go, all right? In the kindest manner I can, without being mean.
Sometimes firing people is the most godly thing you can do on a movie set because they need to be humbled if they're toxic for the whole environment, and you cannot sacrifice the unity of the whole team for the sake of one person and their insecurities and their selfishness. So I was thinking one of the big mistakes I made is not firing a guy sooner on War Room because I kept trying to give him more other chances, but it was hurting the whole crew. And when I fired him, it was like, praise the Lord, you know, everybody, things got so much better in that situation. I would say one of my biggest lifelong learning things is that when the leader makes a last-minute change, it whiplashes the whole crew. And so sometimes I'll have these creative ideas at the last minute, and I'm like, oh, let's do this instead. But then all the rest of the crew has to change. You may be in the middle turning your head, but it's whiplashing them, their schedules, their budgets, their crew, everything else on the outside.
A big trickle-down effect. Yes, yes, yes. And that can happen a lot of times when you have the writers on set with you, and they're like, okay. I mean, it's like you've done all the coverage, and then they go, I just have this one note, and I'm like, but we already shot them. Like, we can't go back now, you know. But yeah. There is such a trickle-down effect, and it's a moving train. So I try really hard to figure out the problems and the solutions, all of that beforehand, because once that train starts moving, it's really hard. You just have to keep staying in front of it. Just pray that the Lord brings you the right team.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah. Pray that every person is just really anointed to be there for you.
I remember when we were on War Room and we had a big change that we were considering making on set, and I was thinking this is going to kill the crew potentially. So we called a lunch meeting while we're eating lunch with all the department heads, and we said, here's the issue, here's the potential change. Can we do this? Can we make this change, and how will it affect your department? And we went around the board. How will it affect wardrobe? How will it affect lighting? How will it affect all the? And we went around, and everybody in the room basically says, we can do it, and we will support you, you know. And we already decided if they said no, we were going to punt that change to the very end of the shoot if we had enough time to do it. Okay. And because everybody was on the same page, I said, first I want to apologize for this change that we're going to make, but if we can do it together, then we can throw on the blinker, and as a team, we can move together, and nobody gets whiplashed. And I'm grateful that we as a team made that decision. So, how is directing for television different from directing for feature films?
Small screen, large screen.
I haven't done it yet. I've got lots of projects that I have written for television, and I'm attached to direct one, but I haven't done it yet. So, but I'm going to do, I mean, because of the way it is now, these will not be in front of a studio audience. It will not be the director switching, you know. We're going to do it just like we would do a film. So there's not really going to be a difference for us.
The main difference, of course, today television is getting bigger and bigger, but the main difference to me as a director of feature and also do some TV is that you can get away with a lot of long shots in movies because the people are huge on the screen, but in TV you gotta go close. You know, medium shot is most of the time.
And 3 locations.
Yeah.
No more than 3 locations. Yes.
The old cliche is that in television the lights are inside the room and in film the lights are outside the room. I think there's some truth in that. And the other difference for me is that in television you've got to put a lot more stock into the legs of a character and a little bit less into plot, because plot will wind itself out too quickly. So you have to have character that will be so interesting to stay with or attractive or funny or whatever that they can grow even beyond the plots that you've thought of. So if anything, more development time into long-legged characters.
And I want to add that for television, you probably don't have that much time for developing the character because, you know, television, people turn it on and turn it off. So you want to engage them really fast. In the theater, they sit in there, they pay the ticket, they'll just sit and watch. You know, some people walk out of a movie, but not many of them. So you don't have that much time in developing the character, the story. You really got to punch it fast.
I know that when we've shot, it's like 6 to 8 weeks to shoot a feature, and we're hoping for a 90 to 2 hour, movie. With television, you're shooting 30-minute, 45-minute episodes, and you got 8, 10, 15 of them, depending on how long the episode is, or the whole series is. So you're signing up for a major, long marathon. A lot of times they're moving faster, the budgets are smaller, and they're reusing sets a lot with television. And it is more character development, because when you're watching a movie, you're caught up in the story. And with television, you're turning on the Andy Griffith Show, not because you know what it's about, but you just want to hang out with Andy and Barney for 30 minutes. So it's so much more about the characters in that situation. But the people that I know that have worked in television say that the marathon of shooting all those is brutal. It's brutal on their families. It's just a lot. So I would say hire, in my mind, because we plotted out some episodic stuff, and I've thought, why don't we hire multiple directors and spread out who's going to be directing what episodes and see if we can leapfrog this so that we're not killing families at the same time.
That is so true. Now, there is Tyler Perry's approach to everything. I don't know if he can shoot a whole season in 28 days, a whole season. But he has the studio, he shoots by location, and it's just boom, 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 boom. But a whole season he puts in the can in 28 days, and he directs every one of them. So it's not that it cannot be done, but you talk about the pre-planning to pull off something like that. That is a lot of preparation done on the front end. But that's a great idea, what you said, because everybody that's done like studio television said when the time shifts, and you're like all nights, and it can get really hard, very brutal.
Next, how would one make an event? What are some tips for getting my film distributed? Make a great movie.
It's so beyond making a great movie, right? Okay, here's your first prayer for today. Please lift this up with me. We need more people to distribute faith and family films. Can we all say amen to that one? We need more. And we need them to widen the road a little bit and not make it such a narrow lane so that stories can have a little bit of uniqueness to them. So I find distribution the hardest part. I always say the devil is in distribution. It's hard. I don't know the answers for you on that one.
It's a changing landscape right now. We are in a seismic moment, and you only usually recognize those in retrospect. But I'm telling you, we're at it right now. And what Dallas Jenkins and VidAngel have done with The Chosen is bypass distribution and just make an app. And we've been making digital apps for the last 15 years, and we can now distribute our own stuff to every person on the planet who can get the internet, but we have to market it. The question is not distribution anymore, it's marketing. And we can't, these guys, I mean, if you guys had the Kendrick Brothers app, how many millions of people would watch whatever you put on it? You don't need CBS, you don't need Netflix, you don't need AMC theaters anymore because everybody can watch on their own phone. We just have to unlock how to do that well. And I don't have that answer yet, but I think we should creatively be dreaming and praying, how can we market some apps where content of the highest quality, and I mean by highest quality what you said, entertainment quality. If it's just good for you television and sermons and lectures, those are great, but there's a reason that CBS and ABC didn't get built on sermons and lectures. They got built on comedy and entertainment and all those diversions that you have wisely unplugged from, which I respect. But anyway, I think distribution is not our problem. I think marketing is, and I would love to learn with you all how to do that.
I have no idea.
Well, I know in our situation with LifeMark, we were, it's the first movie we've not distributed with Sony. And so they turned it down at the script level, and then they turned it down at the first edit level. And they knew that, again, there's a lot of pagans that work there. They were signing up for an internal, woke, chaotic war if they take on a pro-life, pro-adoption movie. And we didn't cry at all when they turned it down. We stepped back and said, Lord, we know you can do it, and you can provide. So we started praying, and what I tell young people all the time when you're making decisions, and this is the way we operate behind the scenes, Jesus said, ask, seek, and knock. And he says in the Greek text there is ask and keep on asking, seek and keep on seeking, and knock and keep on knocking. So we will create this cycle of asking in prayer specifically, seeking out the options that are out there and seeking counsel, and then knocking on doors and waiting for the Lord. And we just keep on asking, seeking, and knocking. And sometimes it's days, sometimes it's months, sometimes it's years. But then in God's timing, he'll open it up. And this whole thing that just happened with Fathom with us, when everything shut down, we were like, what do we do? Do we go straight to DVD? And we're praying, and we were asking, seeking, and knocking. And the Lord opened that door with Fathom. And the cool thing was, instead of $10 million, they're distributing LifeMark for 1.5. So being able to pay that back is going to happen a lot faster. And they have a wide release in 48 states, 1,450 theaters. Wow. And they're able to turn it on a dime instead of us having to market and do 350 interviews over the next year and a half. Yeah. So and then they've added for added value where we're going to be able to present the gospel at the end of the film. There's all these things that have happened, and we're like, Lord, you knew. We didn't know. So I would say keep on. It'll apply. Yeah. So behind the scenes, we're like, Lord, we don't know what to do. We don't, And we're asking, seeking, and knocking. And whatever the technology is, whatever the new distribution models, because Dallas Jenkins, people talk about The Chosen, after Gavin Stone, after what he went through with Gavin Stone, and if y'all were here for the 2017 Film Festival to hear Dallas Jenkins talk about that was incredible, because he stood up as a broken man, humbled, saying, here's what God has done in my life and taught me. And I'm asking him to now take my life and do something with it. And we prayed over him at the 2017 Christian Worldview Film Festival that God would do something great with him in the days ahead. And then he got with the Lord and got on his knees before God, and God birthed The Chosen. Yeah. And now hundreds of millions of people around the world have been watching The Chosen on this app. But all that technology he didn't know about when he started the journey. Right. But he started on his knees. And it's like Joshua before the captain of the Lord's army, how can I take out Jericho? I don't know. And God gave him the strategy. And for you, we don't know the technologies of the future or what's going to happen. But if you'll get on your knees before the captain of the Lord's army and ask God to give it to you, he'll give it to you.
Yes, so many people just worry about getting the film made. And here's one thing that always blows my mind. When somebody brings an idea to me and I ask them immediately, who are you making this movie for? And they have no idea who their audience is. So you got to go all the way back to the script and who is this story for? Who are you making this for? But when you get it in the can, you're not even on the 50-yard line yet, to put it in football terms. Like, you've got so much more to go. So Khaki and Brian and I get on the phone. We pray constantly over into the spotlight. We're still trying to find a home for that one. And it is constantly letting the Lord, and you just have to, you cannot put it down and pick it back up. And that's what you want to do. You know, you want to just like, okay, Lord, we're on our knees. I'm going to put it at the altar. It's yours. And then 4 days later, we still haven't heard anything. Who can we call? Who can we poke? What can we do? Right? You know, so it's that constant challenge of just waiting on the Lord. He definitely uses this time to keep us on our knees. He does.
And with being on our knees, I think it's a good cherry on today. Thank you for being here for this breakfast and enjoying this panel with us. Thank you for being a part of this. All of you, thank you very much.